Listen, y'all been in my inbox asking when I'm coming back? Well, guess what? I'm back. Landlord and Tenant Talk Uncensored is now live every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, as well as TikTok. So grab your pencil, your paper, and your sippy cup, because I'm spilling the tea and nothing is off limits. We're talking about security deposits, inspections, housing programs, bad tenants, slum landlords, late rent, and yeah, we're talking about retaliation. We're also talking about how to fix it all without losing your mind. I'm calling it like it is, no fluff, no fake advice, just the truth landlords and tenants need to hear. So whether you own the building or you pay to stay in it, this weekly live is for you. Well. Hello, everybody. Happy Marvelous Monday. It's a snowy Monday here on the East Coast. I hope that you all are well. I hope that you have been keeping warm in all this cold weather. Many of us, we've been hit hard with the snow and ice, and it's another cold front coming in. But I'm not here today to talk about that. I just want to greet you all. And again, welcome. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Landlord and Tenant Talk show, the Landlord and Tenant Live show with me. If this is your first time joining me, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. And if you are a regular listener, you already know the deal. It's all about facts. It's all about compliance and real world housing operations. Listen, I'm Karissa Spann, the landlord and tenant coach, the landlord and tenant expert. And so today's show is titled Cleaning House. And yes, it is intentional because HUD has issued a 30-day nationwide directive to every housing provider who's receiving funds through. So for those housing providers who have contracts, you have an in-house Section 8, any type of program where your money is coming from HUD, this segment is for you because HUD needs you to understand the urgency in cleaning house within 30 days. So this show is for educational purposes only. Nothing that I share is legal advice. However, housing providers, you must know that if you have questions, you can always check with an attorney. You can always speak to HUD for guidance. And you can also speak to compliance professionals as well for your case specific decisions. All right, so listen. HUD is working alongside the Department of Homeland Security. I know that many of you are abreast and you are aware of the change. Well, this is a nationwide situation where an audit was conducted nationwide. And it was conducted for tenants who are in some sort of HUD-funded housing. Now, one of the things that I'm not surprised about is the alarming red flags. And I do mean they are serious red flags. I mean, nearly 200,000 tenants requiring eligibility verification, almost 25,000 deceased tenants still in the system. And we're talking about housing providers who are receiving funding by way of HUD. And on top of that, nearly 6,000 ineligible non-citizens were receiving HUD assistance. So as a result, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, has ordered that in addition to the housing providers who have a contract with HUD, but also housing authorities, so that includes like public housing, right? Anybody who's receiving HUD funding, they are required to take corrective action within 30 days. Listen, this is not guidance. This is not a suggestion. This is an enforcement action. So let me just be crystal clear about who this affects. So I've mentioned the housing authorities, right? I mentioned how important it is for housing providers who have, for instance, project based, you have in house Section 8 funding. Now, there are different types of programs, but you need to know that if HUD money touches your property, your file, or your bank account, best believe that this applies to you. HUD isn't making this up overnight. This directive is based on an existing law and enforcement authority. It's just that although this is not anything new, this is the first time that we've seen a swift and a prompt action pertaining to this and requires a corrective action within 30 days across the country. All right, so HUD Secretary Scott Turner, he stated that HUD will leave no stone unturned in protecting taxpayer-funded housing resources. Now, I know some may believe or think that it's strange or it's a little harsh or maybe it's they're discriminating, but have you considered this? There are thousands, probably millions of applicants and individuals and families waiting to get housing assistance. So, in some areas, in case you didn't know, the waiting list to get into a Section 8 housing choice voucher program or any type of HUD assisted program, sometimes those waiting lists are massively long, right? I know one housing authority in particular, the average wait time to get on their waiting list was taken anywhere from 10, 15 to 20 years. So you do the math. I gave the numbers, you have deceased people who are still in units, right? Well, of course, they're not physically in units, but allegedly they're still in those units. And the housing provider or the housing authority is still getting money from the federal government. And so when they went through this audit and they realized that they had a lot of cleaning up to do, you can imagine the frustration of the people and the individuals living who's waiting to get into these housing programs. So HUD Assistant Secretary Ben Hobbs, he emphasized that limited housing resources must be a priority for eligible families only. And so that's a big push. And it's not going to be pretty for a lot of people. So for those of you who you have properties and you have programs in your property. So let's say you have a building of 140 or more units. It would require you to, and I would strongly recommend, I'm not giving legal advice, I'm not acting as a consultant right now, okay? But I would strongly recommend that you do a 100% file audit because that's what you should be doing anyway. But you should be conducting a 100% file audit of every folder, every tenant, just to make sure that you've collected what you needed. Because when HUD comes in, they're going to go through, they're going to sweep through with like a fine comb, right? And remember, I said the Secretary of HUD said that they're leaving no stone unturned. So I promise, this is not the time to be caught with your pants down if you are participating in these housing programs with HUD. Okay. So, but let's talk about really why HUD is requiring you to do this, because this is where mistakes will cost you. And I mean, it can cost you. So, before I get into the deep dive of that, let me just say this, that a 30-day corrective action, again, it does require you to do a file audit, but you also want to make sure that you are checking those tenant reports. And so usually in those programs, they have to pull what's called an EIV, and that is to verify tenants' income. And usually on those reports, they'll get a record of deceased tenants. Now, granted, there may be a few that may slip through the crack, but I would strongly recommend to go through that, pull your EIV reports. You want to confirm citizenship, immigration status, that not only that you've received it or you have it on file, but that it accurately matches the records that you have for that particular tenant. Okay. You want to identify mismatches, missing documentation. If you have any errors, this is the time to do it. You definitely want to remove deceased tenants from assistance. And you want to initiate a corrective action for every household that's ineligible. And then you also want to document every step that you've taken to make the correction. Now, HUD is not going to hold it against you that you're making these corrections. Just note the file. Oops, my bad. We made a mistake. Here's how we corrected it. I promise it's going to be a lot worse if you do absolutely nothing. You have those errors. You're receiving funding. You don't do these things that I'm telling you to do. And then HUD comes in, audit your property, and find out that you have all these mistakes. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So documentation is not optional, in other words. If it's not written, HUD will assume it didn't happen. So document, document, document. Listen, like I said, HUD has made this very clear that they will impose sanctions against owners who are found liable and guilty of these issues. And they will recapture subsidy payments, meaning that if HUD has paid you and you have not made the corrections, they're going to take that money back. And on top of that, there is, if you can imagine, there is definitely going to be an increased level of monitoring these programs as well as audits. So be prepared for full effect, full force program compliance findings, because potential finding disruption, I don't know if that's good for business. I think I would dare to say that's bad for business. All right. So I know that some have questioned whether or not you want to participate with the Housing Choice Voucher Program. This segment is not about the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. This is not the type of program that this audit impacts. Okay, so let me just make that clear. But coming from someone who's worked inside of housing authorities, I've had the pleasure of working approximately 18 years inside multiple housing authorities. I've worked in compliance. I've worked in inspections. I've worked in management. And so that's why I wanted to come and speak to you today and share from that thought, because I want to help as many people as possible win and succeed. Don't be caught, like I said, with your pants down. I want you to understand that effective immediately, these are the things that you should do. Pull those reports now, not later. Assign responsibility. Whoever's doing your file audit, make sure they are documenting those files. Do not ignore those EIV mismatches, because I promise the problem will not go away. All right. Create a tracking log for all of your corrective actions. I see your comments. Thank you so much. And then prepare for follow-up. Whenever the audit comes, you want to make sure that you are prepared, because HUD is no longer accepting, oh, we didn't know, or we were understaffed as an excuse. I promise you those days are long gone. So if you are working in a housing authority, if you are an owner, if you are a property manager, and you know this applies to you, now is the time to get on the ball. And I know that sometimes in these households, because I've had to pull EIV reports when I've worked in that capacity, I've worked at various properties who participated in the HUD program. So through private owner as well as housing authorities, we've had to pull EIV reports, and a lot of times there were mismatches. Now, I know that I have some friends who currently work at housing authorities who are tuned in now in a leadership capacity. Make sure that your staff understands how important it is to get this right now. If it's 5, if it's 10, if it's 25, if it's hundreds, if it's thousands, now is the time to get it right because HUD has given you 30 days to correct the actions. That means mixed status households, missing documentation, the timing of the subsidy termination, all these things, listen, all these things impact the wait list. It impacts the waiting list. And so if you could imagine HUD being upset because they're paying money for people who are not eligible, they're paying for people who are dead and gone. And yet you have so many people who's looking for housing. I mean, how fair is that to people who need housing? Alive, well, and able. They're not, now listen, everybody's not looking for a handout. Sometimes people are looking for a temporary hand up. And if these waiting lists are so long because you have the wrong people in the seat, I mean, how fair is that? All right, well, listen, I don't want to put out any fear today. Listen, today was not about fear. It's all about preparation. HUD is signaling a shift that tighter controls are here. Tighter controls on data, cross-agency verification, like tighter controls are here, as well as accountability. Now, that's something that's been missing for a long time. Housing providers who build strong systems will survive this. I'm going to say that again. Housing providers who build strong systems will survive this, but those who don't will struggle. So here's your call to action. Again, like I said, review those files, fix your data, and protect your funding. That's it. I wanted to come and share that today because I want to make sure that as many people as possible is prepared for this HUD audit. Now, for those of you who are small housing providers, this does not apply to you. But here's what I would recommend. I would strongly recommend that as a housing provider, whereas you don't have any units in some sort of HUD-funded or HUD subsidy program, I would still recommend that you follow what HUD is doing because something is going to come down the pipe a little later pertaining to immigration and making sure that even in your files, in your leasing office, in your practice, that you are housing legal individuals in the United States. So this article or this directive, again, it's not directly impacting small landlords, but just take my word on it. Follow HUD's guidance. Follow HUD's lead on what's happening on a larger level, because I promise something is coming down the pipe later. I don't know what it is, but I'm just telling you to just make sure that you are following what HUD is putting out. Make sure that you stay updated. This is not the time to be in a panic. This is definitely the time to be informed. This is the time to be aware. And this is definitely time to make adjustments. And so if you have, for instance, maybe you have vacant units now, or perhaps you have some upcoming vacancies, start looking at your practice with people who want to rent your property. Make sure that you're collecting the right information. Now, some of you may say, well, Karissa, yeah, I hear you, but that doesn't necessarily apply to me. I promise you this one thing. If you have a vacancy and if you are advertising your vacancies anywhere online, if you have a large apartment community, right? You have a vacancy and many of you are advertising online on different platforms, right? They're going to start monitoring those things. They're already looking at communities, right? They're looking at communities. When I say they, I'm talking about ICE. the immigration laws, and all the things that we see taking place. So now is a time to make sure that you are not caught, left behind, that you're not caught with your pants down, and you're not caught in a compromising situation. So that's it. I wanted to share how this HUD 30-day citizenship verification order came about, because it's time to clean house. So get a jump start for those of you who are working in these in-house or these Section 8 programs, these project-based Section 8 programs. And if you're working in public housing, if you're working even in the voucher program, and you have tenants who, well, you have tenants who are dead and gone, and yet you're still telling HUD that you need funding for them. Now's the time to get your act together. All right, so listen, that's it. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. Please make sure that you tune in each and every week. I know today was a little bit over the top, maybe not necessarily for you, but listen, each and every Monday, you can find me right here. I'm live on Facebook, I'm live on LinkedIn, and I'm also live on YouTube. And please, if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please make your way over to YouTube. Find me there, Landlord Lyfe with Karissa Spann. But then if you haven't done it, why haven't you? Shame on you. Go to my YouTube channel, hit that like button, subscribe, comment. And also, if there is a topic that you would like for me to cover, many of you receive my emails. Let me know. Let me know what topic you would like for me to cover. Sometimes I do get questions on that YouTube channel, and I will reply. I will respond. I thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. Listen, you all, my time is up, and I absolutely thank you for yours. I hope that you'll join me right here next Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, if you are on the East Coast, anywhere impacted by this cold weather, this cold front, please be safe. Please be careful. All right. I appreciate you. It has been a fantastic pleasure with you all today, and I look forward to seeing you all next Monday. Bye for now. Oh, okay. So let me answer that one question. I do apologize. You said, "Hi, Karissa. How do you pull an EIV report? Do I request it from housing?" Okay, great question. I wanted to answer that before ending this section, this segment. So I hope that you're still on. So EIV, that is only for housing providers who participate. So let's say you have an in-house project-based Section 8 program that you have a contract with HUD, right? You have a contract with HUD and your funding comes from HUD. You're required to pull an EIV report. EIV is not for small or market housing providers. So let's say I'm renting your property and you want to pull an EIV report on me. You can't do that because you don't have a contract to do that. So you wouldn't have access to that information. But thank you so much for that question, which is why I said that this segment is specifically for housing providers who have a contract directly with HUD or the housing authority. You have, let's say, for instance, an apartment building. Maybe you have a 50-unit building and you have a contract with the government where all tenants in that building or a set amount of tenants in your building is directly contracted with HUD, right? You would be required to pull those EIV reports. But if that's not you, then you don't have to worry about that. But thank you so much for that question. I didn't want to end the segment without answering that. All right, so if you have any other questions, drop it in the comment section. And even like I said, when I'm not live, I still answer questions. And so next week, I'm going to get back to some tips for you as private landlords as well as tenants. All right, so make sure that you come back next week and I'll have more information for you that will helpfully, positively impact you in how you do your business and how you run your rental property. All right. So I'll see you all next week.